I want to share a story about when I quit smoking. And I had been smoking for at least 20 years or at least trying to quit for 20 years. And I would smoke up to a pack a day sometimes. And this was before, vapes were really ever a thing. And I was training at a gym in San Diego for Russian kettlebell sport. And my coach, he was a really extraordinary individual, and he was really hardcore. He knew that I was quitting. And again, I'd been failing. I had years and years and years of failed attempts stacked up. I'd tried so many different things, from cold turkey to doing it progressively to accountability partners to hypnosis and blah, 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 therapy, parts work. So I had stopped, and he knew it, and I went into the gym, and he smelled it on me from like 2 days ago. He said, "Hey, Skinny, you been smoking?" Yeah, coach. I might have had one on the weekend because I had a couple too many beers. Well, he looked at me and squinted his eyes, and he said, "We're going to beat you up really good today." So what he had me do was essentially lots and lots and lots of squats with a bar and with nothing but the bar. Now, you could give the most jacked man on the planet a clothespin. And if you have him do enough reps with that clothespin without any rest in between, there'll come a point when he just can't squeeze that clothespin open for a single more rep. And you'll see this giant beast of a man going and unable to squeeze it. So that's basically what he did to me with these squats on the bar. And there was a aspect of humiliation to that, because when I was done with that, I sat down on the couch and I was ready to vomit out of my nose at that point. And I was seeing stars and I could barely breathe. It was perfectly safe. It was just the bar. He just had me go beyond my limit on there. And then he just laid into me. "Oh, look at how weak you are. My wife can do more reps than you." He just tore into me about what a weakling I was and why my weakness was caused by my stupid choices and lifestyle habits and whatever. Now, this is a decision point for anybody. I could easily have said, "Oh, what an asshole. Like, how dare you speak to me that way? How dare you try to humiliate me?" But that's not the way I see things. Whenever I receive any type of criticism, the very first question I ask myself is it true? And so I paused and I said, is what he's saying true? Am I weak? And is it because of the stupid lifestyle choices I make? And lo and behold, he was right on the money. And so I had to acknowledge that. I said, yeah, you're right. You're right, I am. And I let it in. I made a conscious choice to let that in. Not in a way that was like self-deprecating, to be like, "Oh, I suck. I'm a terrible person. I don't deserve love." Not like that. But I let that in to be like, you know what? I am weakening myself, and it's my choice to do that. It's choices that I'm making. And this is the outcome of it. I shouldn't run away from that outcome. He's put me in a position where I'm experiencing the peak unpleasantness of my choices and what that had created in me. I let it in and I said, yeah, you're right. And what that did is it allowed how shitty I felt, because I felt so sick and shitty. And I'm not a kind of person who's really fearful of or subject to being humiliated. It wasn't that. It was just I felt so sick and weak. And I associated that with smoking. So there was a kind of conditioning that happened where my brain associated those two things together. And after that day, after that moment, I never smoked again. Ever. At least not another cigarette. And it was, instead of swimming upstream and fighting all these impulses, it would, like, I would have a craving to smoke a cigarette because that was just sort of the momentum of the habitual energy that I had built up. So I'd have an automatic craving. I'd even, like, sort of reach for the cigarette or start to think the thought maybe I should get one, and immediately I'd feel like I was gonna puke out of my nose. And I would just feel so sick and horrible, and I'd be like, no, 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 no. Nope. So it was easy to say no after that. I'd got my body and everything in line with it. And I think that's the problem that most people have with any type of addictions, you know, smoking just being a rather particularly difficult one, is that you're associating it with a lot of pleasure. And you haven't had enough pain, and you haven't really faced and taken on the pain that it's causing you and the damage that it's causing, not as a concept, not as an intellectual concept, but as a real embodied knowledge, as a real embodied feeling. And that's why I think I said to start, this wasn't just something that I could have done on my own. It was this sort of act of grace where someone or something in my environment who had the balls and the spine to actually speak the truth and reflect to me what the truth was. And then I had the awareness to look at it. And because it was the truth, I really let it in. And that gave me everything I needed to have the energy to align my behavior with the changes that I wanted so much. When I said that I never smoked another cigarette again and that was never a problem, that was true. But I did start vaping years later. And I got into the point where I was fully addicted to it. Little nicotine vapes. In a way, it's even more addictive than cigarettes. But here's the thing that happened. I quit that cold turkey. I quit it out of nowhere, out of pure choice and pure willpower. And I stopped definitively and successfully. I believe the reason I was able to do that is because in my mind I had already conquered that substance. I'd already conquered nicotine and a nicotine addiction. So I have a belief that I can, and this goes to say about the power of belief. You can't fake it. You have to actually believe that you can. And while I suppose it might be possible to manufacture a belief like that, the best way to do it by far, and the most certain way to do it, is to actually do it in reality. And then that belief takes root because it's real. And your brain knows the difference between what's real and what's not. So the fact that I had done that once seeded that belief that I could. And after that, it became much easier. And I became able to just quit cold turkey from pure willpower, where in the past I wouldn't have been able to do that. And in fact, I had tried for many, many years and unsuccessfully. And so I think this principle applies to more than just smoking, although it definitely applied to that. And while it's not something that you can manufacture, it's not something I'd be able to like set up that easily. It just happened. And there's probably positions you can put yourself in where you're a little bit more vulnerable to something like that happening, you know? Like, I can't smoke and compete in kettlebells at the same time. So I was up against it. And that is a choice you can make with anything. Put yourself into situations that keep making it a problem, that what you're doing is a problem. And you'll get those opportunities of grace that I'm talking about. So that's all I had to say about that today. Bye.